pay me no mind, sports and entertainment video, or for joining in, stopping by on another live. I'm gonna talk about some of the fights from last night with the Canelo Alvarez, with him being triumphant over formerly undefeated, WBA champion, super middleweight champion, Callum Smith, and the ring belt, the vacant WBC belt, and just the show. Frank Sanchez, a little heavyweight boxing, the youngsters on there, Mo Williams, Ray Ford, so on and so forth. Shout out to this cat named Earl Davis on Facebook. I don't mess with Facebook, man, but I had to jump on today to watch his live of my Washington football team. So I'm checking that out over here to the right. Couple of things before I get to cooking. So I made a video about I was actually trying to ask a question. I don't see a whole lot of benefit in me coming on telling people what to think on everything, or that you should share my beliefs on this particular subject. Sometimes I'm asking a freaking question that I'm just not seeing anybody else address on YouTube or in their boxing coverage. Sometimes seeking feedback. If people really want to, talk about boxing, just besides the same thing. So I made the video, and Chris Carlson, who hosts the Rope-A-Dope podcast, he commented. He made several lengthy comments on the video. I wouldn't say he was really attacking me or anything. He was making some points, kind of defending the PBC, kind of defending pay-per-views, and talking about stuff that I really wasn't even talking about. That stuff. He gave me everything but insight or feedback on what I was asking about, which is the future. He taught me about all this past stuff that we already know. I didn't even disagree with most of what he was saying. I do disagree with a couple of key points, and I tried to point those things out. Didn't get any response back. So maybe I'll call him Tuesday, call into his podcast. I would suggest and recommend that other boxing fans, make him a part of your weekly boxing intake. Your Monday or Sunday through Thursday, Sunday through Friday boxing intake. Check his podcast out. He gives a very balanced, balanced and wide-ranging discussion on the sport. I have no problem with most of his coverage. I do disagree with some stuff that he says from time to time. I disagree with some of his callers, his staple callers. I disagree with some of the stuff that they say, but that's their opinion. That's their viewpoints on it. The one thing that I will continue to stand on for me, I said this yesterday about this rapper that had this line, like, people are good, people love the rules, person holding the knife. And that's what we get a lot of in boxing, is we love the rules if we love the person that's holding the knife, even though it really doesn't really fit into our best interest in terms of following the sport. If that Canelo Alvarez is a really good fighter, I didn't mean that. I didn't really mean that. What I'm saying is, though, I do think he's very polarizing, and that I have to watch him and watch his career, factoring in all of the different things that are being that we know, the negotiations on the contracts, the different stipulations in there, the way that the Kovalev fight came together, the fact that he didn't go up and he wasn't going to defend that light heavyweight title or unify with any of the other light heavyweights. So I don't fly with that, with a lot of these guys out here when we go to throw praise on different fighters because they do what they can do, or they do what they want to do, or they did what we all knew they were gonna do. Like how do you? I get tired. One thing you get tired of as you get older is you get tired of patting motherfuckers on the back for like just being in a great situation. But then you struggling yourself. You know, you got to fight tooth and nail for everything you get. But for these couple of elite individuals in the world, you're supposed to pat them on the back for everything they do. I don't really operate like that. I'm not really here to tear the man down. And then the other thing, so I get on to these, to the breaking down the fights. The other thing that I got a problem with Canelo, you know, the decisions, some of the decisions that he squeaked by in. But what I was trying to say more or less was, I don't really feel like he does a whole lot for boxing for the United States. I feel like he's a West Coast boxer, a West Coast and then down into Mexico. I feel like he does that. I don't see Canelo bringing in a lot of fans in the Midwest or the Deep South, with the exception, you know, of Florida and whatnot. I don't see him resonating in those areas, was what I was trying to say. And part of that is because of the fact, obviously, he doesn't speak English, but he's not a guy, when he has an event, he can't come on ESPN, or ESPN sends people out to cover his event, and they know that they can't put him on all of the different shows. He actually did a radio interview on Sirius XM like last Thursday, and he did it with his interpreter. That was weird as shit to me. It was a female interpreter. And then obviously he understands English and he speaks English. But they asked him the question, and then he just started, you know, giving his response to the interpreter, and then she gave his answer back. Cool, but I'm just saying, I don't really feel like he really moves the needle for boxing. I think he's a West Coast, then Mexico, and then he has an international presence, which aren't bad things to have. They really aren't. But I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. I mean, you know, Christopher Carlson, you disagree with me because I don't worship the man. I don't put him on the pedestal. I don't think that boxing needs him any more than he needs boxing. That's what I'm saying. Now, before I get into last night's action, I did want to go back to Charles Conwell from Thursday night. I wrote the fight up, and I put it up on bitedownboxing.com, but I didn't really talk through it. I thought he had a great performance. I think he's a strong kid. I think he's young, obviously. I think he's being moved pretty well. I love his style. I love his his skill set. I think he is a little short for super welterweight in a way. But I like how he's I don't want to say he's almost like Canelo, but I see him being able to fight taller opponents based on how he fights. He gets really compact. He doesn't take a lot of flush shots because he gets compact. He gets smaller for you to hit him. Doesn't give you much space to hit him. His bob and weave is good. He rarely fights. He fights from the inside out and then back in. He starts the fights out getting inside, and then he gradually moves to mid-range. Then he gets outside later in the fight, shows you a little bit of boxing, gives you a different look. And then when he feels like it's safe to go back in and get what he was trying to get done to get a stoppage, he goes back inside to do his work. But he rarely is going to stand at the outside, at the edge of your punches, at the edge of his opponent's punches, and just get beat up all night. I think his defense might be a little overlooked in terms of his package as a fighter overall. The one thing, so anyway, he's strong as hell. We don't see a whole lot of young kids that like to fight inside. He thrives off of it. So I think that's good for him. And like I said, he'll accept the locate or the real estate moving outside later in the fight when he's built up some damage on his opponent, and he doesn't think that that's going to be a weakness of his, you know, with the boxing. But other than that, he's inside. He's, like I said, he stays tight. He explodes. He goes to the body. He's working the uppercut. I like what I see. What I think is going to be difficult for him is, and what's, you know, just the reality of the situation is, he's in a division where there's 2 champions. One of them has 3 belts in Jermell Charlo, and we definitely don't think he's ready to face a Jermell Charlo at this particular point. And whereas if you're in a division where there's, you know, there's at least 3 champions, there's 4 belts, there's 3 champions, you can look at your different matchups and see what the weakest link is, and what, you know, which champion is going to give you the best opportunity to become a world champion. Or you could be in a division where there's a vacant title, and you and some other cat like Angelo Leo for Mayweather Promotions, he fought for that vacant WBO bantamweight, super bantamweight title. He fought against another cat who's never been a world champion. Conwell doesn't have that path. Like, it's only gonna get more difficult for him, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it'll just be interesting because in all likelihood, we probably won't see Conwell against. We might not see him against anybody, you know, unless they can find the right gatekeeper or journeyman. It's going to be very difficult for us to get a look of him as somebody that's been to the world-class level before he faces a champion. And then he also has his, you know, his business situation with who he's promoted by. It might not be the most balanced set of circumstances going into that fight, you know, because he doesn't have the big money behind him. So it's going to be a challenge for him. It just is. But I like what I'm seeing. I like that he showed a little bit of personality Thursday night. His story is excellent. Comes from a good family. He's a guy that's not going to beat himself with bad habits. He seems to be a student of the game. I see him making the sacrifices. He's not going to be a kid that's going to beat himself, and he's well grounded. He just had a daughter and spoke on that. I think you can sell him on TV. You know, he's pretty decent on the mic. So I think he has a lot of good things going for him. And it's really no rush for him. You know, it's really no rush for him. So that's what I wanted to say on Conwell from the other night, and the Ring City USA situation. Another quick thought before I get into last night's card was something else that the Christopher Carlson from the Rope a Dope podcast kind of got at me about with like I was really trying to, you know, like I was defending the zone, or I'm a representative of the zone and whatnot. But I think last night you saw that next. What's up, Gary Smith? Yesterday was the fact that the WBC super middleweight belt was up for grabs last night. What was on Boxing Scene like Thursday or something, or maybe even Wednesday, was that the WBC came in and made that belt available, but it had a stipulation that the winner of Canelo and men. So Yildirim, if you've been following this, Yildirim had the headbutt situation over a year ago or whatever with Anthony Durrell when they were it might have been a vacant title at that time, or maybe Durrell had the title. I can't remember the full details on it, but there was a headbutt in there, I believe. Yildirim, or was it? I'm sorry, I didn't research all of this before talking about it. Something happened in that fight. It ended early, but Durrell either retained or got the title, but they were supposed to come back and have a rematch because of how it ended. And I think the WBC might even mandated it. Anyway, Durrell went on to face Benavidez, instead of Yildirim. He's just been lingering out there. You know that one ended with the headbutt in part, but it went far enough to where they either stopped it or whatever. But Benavidez became the WBC super middleweight champion. He had the belt for a while, and then it was vacant because Benavidez lost it with the cocaine suspension thing, I believe. I think that's how it became vacant. They stripped him. So anyway, Benavidez loses his belt on the title. He loses his title on the scales a couple months ago. The belt is vacant again. Yildirim still has his mandatory. He still hasn't been given his chance. So now they come up and they give this vacant WBC title. It's up for grabs last night for Canelo and Callum Smith. As we all expected, Canelo wins and has that WBC title. So now he has to fight Avni Yildirim. So if the WBC sticks to the situation, the stipulation that they made, that's who we would see Canelo fight in February, because that's 90 days. And then you also, if you following along, Canelo, he just nearly missed a whole year of work, and he wants to get back on schedule to have the 2 Mexican dates, Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence Day, September 14th or whatever it is, the middle of September. He wants to get back on those dates, which, you know, is a part of boxing's schedule annually. So for him, go get that fight in February, possibly be ready to go back in May 8th, I believe, and then, you know, be ready for September. So that's how he's kind of trying to do it. So that's the question that I was asking yesterday was not me trying to tell, it wasn't really me trying to make any point about Canelo. It was asking a question of, is the WBC making this Yildirim fight a mandatory situation? Nobody wants to pay for that fight. Nobody's going to want to pay $75 to watch him fight Avni Yildirim. So who's going to pay for it? Who's going to give Canelo Alvarez, you know, 17, 18, 25, 30 million to go fight him? Exactly. So that's what my question was yesterday. It wasn't me sitting here trying to tell fight fans that I know everything and I'm all into this. It was a simple article that was out there that had a simple stipulation in it. And I just was asking, how is that going to affect Canelo moving forward? So what I proposed was, it seems like with the WBC getting involved, putting this title on the line last night, it seems like it's great because it makes Canelo a unified champion. It pumps him up and makes him, you know, bigger and so on and so forth. But now that you have this obligation out there, it gives Showtime a chance to come and get a meeting with Canelo. Yeah, we'll pay for this stinker right here against Yildirim. We'll give you, we'll pick up that fight and we'll give you your guarantee of 18 or 20 million. But that May 8th date, we need that too. And if I'm Showtime, you got to fight Charlo May 8th. That's what we need to give you 20, 25 million to face Avni Yildirim. Or DAZN can come in and say, we'll pay you for Avni Yildirim, whoever he is, and then you got to face either Triple G on May 8th, or you got to fight Billy Joel Saunders, or he just got rid of Smith. So that's what I was saying. The WBC, with this fight that nobody wants to see, it allows people to come back to the table and try to lock up Canelo for 2 fights instead of him being the free agent that he wanted to be. That's all I was really throwing out there. Of course, just like Gilberto Ramirez did Friday night with doing his own promotion. and having no guarantee, and finding Fight TV to be the pay-per-view person. Canelo could go out there and do it on his own. And if he thinks that if he believes that he's as big as he is, and he's willing to forego a guarantee, and it's all on, and his compensation is all going to be based on pay-per-view sales, he can do that as well. I don't foresee him wanting to go through the hassle of all the administrative aspects of doing that. So I think he'll be looking for a partner, and it gives somebody a chance to come back in and get involved in the Canelo business. So moving on. So what I was trying to say was, we kind of had this problem in boxing with, nobody really cares to see. We talked about this yesterday. The KO cat made a comment, and kind of agreed with me, but nobody wants to see the grooming process. Nobody's really all that concerned with watching and watching all of the steps of the grooming process for all of these young fighters. And it's almost like these cooking shows where they prepare the dish and then they go put it in the oven. And before they put the dish that needs to cook, they take a already prepared dish out of the oven, put it on the counter, and then they put the one that they just prepared in the oven. And then they come over here and slice this, put it on the plate. They plate it, as they say, and they eat. And that's what people want to see in boxing. Like, you have a couple of good TV appearances, and then you need to go face a champion. And that's what I want. And it just doesn't work like that. And I think nobody's really giving DAZN much credit, or Matchroom much credit, for trying to invest in the Ammo Williams kid who we saw last night, who had a good performance. Zero patience, Gary Smith. Ray Ford had he had an excellent performance last night. And I'm getting ready to get into their fights in a minute. But to finish that point off, this is why we've been on guard with, keeping Dana White out of the sport and not wanting to see Dana White succeed, and taking shots at Dana White and Zuffa boxing never becoming a thing. But part of the reason is Dana White doesn't have anybody to jump into boxing with. He doesn't have any fighters of note. There's no major fighter to go out there and get and hitch your wagon to, and to try to give your promotional company a chance to succeed. So that's why Dana White is on the sidelines complaining and talking about boxing is too broken. No, it's not too broken. He just doesn't have any. He doesn't have any named fighter that he can go and start with. Then on top of that, you got to get another 4 or 5 fighters. You got to damn near have. You just got to have the right players, man, or you can't play. It's really that simple. And Matchroom, and when they started their thing, they obviously went in and they had the relationship or the situation with Anthony Joshua. They were able to do the thing with Golden Boy and bring in Canelo and the rest of the roster on Golden Boy. And then Matchroom went out and got a couple of these youngsters to put in the pipeline, and to have them start developing, to give us something else to be interested in. But like I said, a lot of us, we don't care about anybody with less than 8 fights, with less than 10 fights. We don't really have time for that. So that's kind of the state of things. Anyway, let me get on to Frank Sanchez, the heavyweight. What is he, Cuban? I think he's Cuban. He fought Julian Fernandez last night. I'm not the biggest Sanchez fan. I kind of don't know what he is as a heavyweight. He got the win last night. I think it was a 7th round knockout or something. Knocked dude out of the ring. I think the dude was a blown up cruiserweight. Um, you get the big ending, but for me, you just let a guy with 0 ring generalship. Um, did he catch that? You let a dude with 0 ring generalship and like no real presence in the ring. You sat here and allowed him to go rounds with you, and he was taunting him. He was making Sanchez look bad. He was making Sanchez look like Sanchez didn't have a lot of class. Maybe we don't really want to see. We're not all that anxious to see Sanchez again because you allowed this dude to muck it up, get you off rhythm, and get you out of sorts, and get your technique off, and it didn't impress me. I would have liked to seen him by the 3rd or 4th round. I would have liked to seen him kind of come up with some kind of attack to make that dude submit or knock him out, versus him sitting on the ropes telling you come get you, and nah, I ain't going nowhere. I'm gonna stay right here. Come get you. Come get me. And then you just sit there and kind of go along with it. And I understand, when a guy isn't really trying to fight you in a normal manner, it might be more difficult to get off. You can't really, you don't really have the regular looks to counter or, catch him with something that he doesn't see coming. I get all of that. But again, you're the guy that's going someplace. You're the guy that has the future. You're the money fighter. I would have liked to have seen him do something to get that guy out of there and break him down and show that he didn't belong to be in the ring with him. But he went rounds with him, and I don't know. His performance really didn't jump off the screen for me. Down at super featherweight, Raymond Ford of Camden, New Jersey, is southpaw. I think the kid is like 21 years old. I believe he might have won his 7th or 8th fight last night. Got another stoppage against Juan Antonio Lopez was his name. I thought it was an excellent performance by Raymond Ford. And his opponent had, I want to say, 20-something fights. So you could see, and he had a great amateur career, good amateur pedigree and whatnot. But I think Raymond Ford showed you a lot of what running that ball, Washington football team. But I thought Raymond Ford showed you a lot of his skill set, a lot of what's promising about him. He's another kid. He has all the tools you could ever want. Excellent tools. He's quick. Not known as a power puncher really, but he definitely with his agility, with his quickness, being explosive and all of that, he can do it all. He just needs to face the right opponents and go down the path. And in all likelihood, in 2021 he'll be spending the same thing, being stepped up and maturing as a fighter. I like his trainer too. I like his relationship with his trainer. I like his trainer's instruction and how he manages the fight for him and whatnot. I think that's dope. He's got a good team. He's working with Fimo Lopez, being on the East Coast. He's in camp with him. He's in camp with Shakur Stevenson. No weight problems. I like his attitude. He's a guy that seems to, this is his plan A, and he doesn't have a plan B. So another kid at 130, to keep an eye out for. He's months away. He's several opponents away, but I like what I'm seeing. And I like to see his consistency and with his growth, from performance to performance. So that's that. Just keep doing your thing. Ammo Williams took on Isaiah Jones out of Detroit. Like I said, Isaiah Jones was a good opponent because he's durable as hell. He could take a hell of a punch. And he was active this year. He was one of these guys that probably wouldn't have been on TV other than us finding ourselves in this pandemic. But he was one of the cats that out of the Midwest who took advantage of multiple appearances in the bubble on Top Rank on ESPN. I think he fought on there 3 times. I think he only won once. And then the one kid popped on some steroids or something after the fact. He was an MMA guy coming over to boxing. But Jones is durable. Like I said, I can't remember the one opponent that he fought, but he took shots all night and just kept fighting. He doesn't do a whole lot offensively, which is what got him in trouble last night. But it was a good test for Ammo, and it was a guy, if you've been paying attention, like I say, if you tune in weekly and you start connecting these dots and understanding, getting a feel for who's who, coming into the fight, like what could Ammo do to show how his maturation process is going on. And I expected that fight to go 4 or 5 rounds, 6 rounds. He got him out of there in the first round. I like what Ammo does in terms of, he's not, I think they fought at middleweight last night, but Ammo isn't, he's not a Berlanga, swinging big shots from outside and kind of like volume, brawling. Ammo is more patient and do more with less, but good power, land a shot at the right time, set it up. He's that kind of puncher and finisher. So I thought it was an excellent performance by Ammo Williams. Definitely good for him to get. I think that might have been his second fight of 2020. He's a guy, like I said, one of the problems with Matchroom USA and DAZN is the youngsters that they have, they're really young. And really young fighters don't really generate buzz. They don't move things a whole lot. These are guys that aren't, Ammo Williams is he's a few fights away from even thinking about being like a co-main event or something. He's a guy you throw on the card. He delivers a good show. He's maturing. He's pretty good on the microphone. Got a good charisma. And as long as he continues to finish guys in an impressive fashion, you can continue to build off of him. So good night for Austin Williams, Ammo. He's also from Texas, so he had some fans in the house last night with it being in San Antonio. Excellent outing from Raymond Ford. So-so for Frank Sanchez, in my opinion. And then let's get to this main event so I can get on off here. Oh, I thought it was also excellent that with it being DAZN, they had interviews with Errol Spence Jr. They also had an interview with Fimo Lopez Jr. And again, I salute to me. Ammo's from Houston. He has potential to be good, but he has to grow. Only been boxing for 5 years. Yeah, I got a couple interviews with him down on my playlist. Yeah, I talked to him a couple times, and yeah, you're right. He hasn't been. Actually, he was a basketball player, and I think he even spent a little bit of time at a smaller school in Texas, trying to play point guard before realizing that, I forget, we had a conversation about it, but he just said, it was better for him to move on and do something that he said he was too short, to have a bright future and the skill set that he had on the hardwood. So he said he went over to boxing, picked it up quickly, and like you said, had a lot of success in the amateurs very quickly, won some Texas state titles, and moved on to USA boxing, was doing his thing over there. Interesting kid. Like I said, I got an interview with him down on the playlist. You can check it out if you got time. But I thought it was dope. A lot of people knock DAZN for this and knock for that. They do this, they did that. I hate the commentary team. It's an app. People fighting on an app. It's a lot of criticism, but nobody goes and says the fact that they try to cover boxing for everybody. Anybody who has and you can say, well, of course they do that. They need to do that because they're trying to get a footing, and they need to be like that. They can't afford to be isolationists like the PBC can. They don't have the roster. They don't have the visibility. I get that. But I don't care. it's still dope that when you didn't see Bud get interviewed a couple of weeks ago on the PBC show. To PBC's credit, they have started to acknowledge him as, the champion that's out there. They had that image a week and a half ago, I believe, of Bud. Who do you want to fight? Who do you want to see Errol against next? And they had an image of Bud and Errol Spence Jr. in the ring with one another. I've said this before. CBS football. What is CBS or NBC football? NBC or CBS. They tell you about games that'll be coming on ESPN. They tell you about the games that are going to be on the other networks. They report the entire sport in football. We don't want to do that in boxing because we don't want to lose we don't want to help other entities with their visibility and increasing their popularity. We want it all to come to us. I thought the Spence interview was good. And I think it's very telling. Shout out to 503 Line for anybody that checks this video out. The brother just did like 60 new subscriptions in like 3 days to hit that 1,000. And he works daily on this stuff. He has panels discussing boxing in a variety of different ways. And check him out. Like I said, he always working and putting out, covering the sport. I thought it was a great interview. I'm a fan. I want to see the fight get made. You know what, man? I don't really talk duck and talk, man. That's not my. I can't add nothing to that discussion. The whole ducking thing in boxing, I can't add no value to that discussion. I think Errol Spence has done what he needed to be doing. I think, once the PBC was able to get him to the world title level with the Brook fight, I think they've had a path for him. I think he followed it and did what he needed to do on fight night. I'll even say this last fight, I appreciated the fact that Errol Spence promoted the fight and worked the fight ahead of getting to fight week. I saw him on a lot of different platforms that I didn't see him bother with leading into the Porter fight. Porter did all of the heavy lifting going into that fight. But with Errol showing his face more and if you're gonna be the draw, you gotta go out there and do the work. You gotta make the appearances. You gotta talk about the fights. You gotta do that. You gotta be seen. So even him here, it's a fight in his state. He is a big deal. So I think with him being there, that was great. I think his comments are on point. And I also think he's shedding light on the fact that with him being a pay-per-view fighter, he's interested in making the best fights that will only continue to trend things upward for him. I think for us, it's a shame that for me personally, I speak for me. I think it's kind of a shame that he doesn't show more interest in wanting to face Crawford. But I think he's aware of the politics and the negotiations. So it's hard to talk about the fight, but then show your cards too much. So I think he's keeping his cards close to the vest because he said in the same sentence, he contradicted himself. I don't really need Crawford, or that's no big deal, or we'll get to that when we get to that, or we'll if Bob and Al sit down and talk about it, it can get done. We can figure it out. But blah blah blah. But then in the end of that sentence, he says, I want to be undisputed at 147. So the only way that you can be undisputed at 147 is to fight Terrence Crawford at some point. And I think that might happen. But then he came out and finished the interview with the fact that 60-40 is the best that it could be. And we might even expect 70-30. And to which I think we came out and saw, or Bud came out and made some comments, excuse me, that this shows y'all who to blame for why the fight hasn't happened, or why it isn't happening, or why it's likely to not happen. And then he said that fight is dead. We'll move on. And that's a shame to hear that. That's a shame to hear that. But Bud definitely has to accept some onus. That 60-40 might be it, bro. That might be it. That might be it. I thought Fimo Lopez, I thought he was pretty decent on the mic as well. We want to know what's up with him. I said this yesterday. Him and his dad want to talk about moving on from 140. That's a heck of a decision to make that choice so hastily when you go up to 140 and don't have any titles, and you got to figure out a way to get into the title picture and restart, and figure out how to become a big deal and a major figure at 140 versus you've made some money and you have all of this momentum at lightweight. Can you stay disciplined? Can you sacrifice and do what you got to do and use all of the resources that you now have to continue to make lightweight, maybe get a defense or two in at lightweight that really makes sense, that really makes good business. Let some things get sorted out at 140, and see if you can go into 140 with more leverage or better options. So I thought he said all the right stuff though, and speaking on the Devin Haney fight and whatnot, and that belt, that situation, that mess that the WBC created with how they managed, the situation with Loma, franchise tag, elevating Haney to champion and whatnot. It's no easy way it is an easy way to figure that out, but until those two dudes fight each other, I didn't agree with Fimo that Haney didn't do anything against 38-year-old Gamboa. He only beat the dude pillar to post, and but he can say that though. He can say that though. Whatever he says pretty much is what's gonna resonate the most because he has the best set of wins in the division, and eventually he will need to look for a meaningful opponent or the right type of opponent for the right type of event at lightweight, or you got to go up to 140 and figure something out there. So it's not like he doesn't need Ryan Garcia. He doesn't need Gervonta Davis. At some point, if they're going to put big events around you, you got to have opponents that move the needle for the event. All right, so getting into Smith and Canelo, this is what we thought would happen pretty much. I didn't really know what to expect from Callum Smith. What I was hoping that he would do was at least be tough, At least be tough. At least don't go out there and embarrass yourself and embarrass your last name and completely lose everything that you established. Becoming 27-0 and becoming regarded as the number one 168 fighter. At least just don't go out there and lose all of that, in 9 minutes or in 12 minutes. At least walk out of there. Like I mentioned yesterday with the Broner fight against Pacquiao. Like we will never, nobody in no argument, no AB, no pro AB argument. Nobody will ever go out there and say, well, in that fight against Pacquiao, Broner did. Nobody's ever gonna say that. And I just said it was kind of a that's just part of Broner's story, is that you were in here with one of the legends of the game and one of them, the most important fighters of this era, and the fight that you had with them, you did nothing to make it memorable. And Smith, he basically fell into that same bucket with his performance against Canelo. He didn't do a whole lot for him ever to be spoken of as a Lara or Triple G against Canelo. We just move on from this fight. You know, he was. We saw very early that you know, his height advantage was not really an advantage to him. He was just a taller guy. He was the longer guy. But that's the remarkable thing in that's the remarkable thing with Canelo, and shows you his skill and his ability, is that he neutralized all of that stuff very quickly. He's walking this man down. You know, one thing with Callum Smith, with him being at that height for a super middleweight, every time he went to go throw a punch, he had to set that long body up to throw the punch. And the first punch that he threw really had no chance of landing because Canelo is seeing all of that. He's seeing him gather his feet. He's seeing him stop, gather his feet, twist his body, you know, to launch the punch. He's seeing all of that. So the first punch really had no chance whatsoever to land. And then he was lucky if he did anything with the second or third punch. And he's not really doesn't have a lot of conviction in throwing that third punch. Metcalf hurt. He doesn't have a lot of conviction in throwing that third punch because, like a NFL quarterback, you got that clock in your head, that 2-second clock, that 2.5-second clock or whatever, and the ball's got to be out. And that's the same thing with Callum Smith. Like, the punch, I got to be out. You know, the punch has to be thrown, and I got to be out. And so when his jab kind of went away, which was never all that effective, it just was going to be the same thing all night long. And, you know, it basically got to a situation. The one thing that looks good for him today was when his team threatened to stop the fight and only give him like a round or you know, a round more, at the end of the 8th or 9th round, you know, once his corner said, look, we can't continue to sit here and watch this, you know, he was vehement about, nah, I'm good. I can finish. Nah, I'm good. Like, we don't even have to consider that as a team. So I thought that spoke well of him. But, you know, I've said this before on other fights, man. Your best skill in world-class fights, championship fights, your best skill can't be just being tough. I can take a hell of a punch. I can take punishment. That can't be your best skill. You know, you got to have something else to go with that. You know, you got to have a lucky punch tucked away in there, or I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory situation and just go for it. You got to have something else to go with just tough. But, you know, Canelo showed you everything. You know, he showed you how a smaller guy can jab with the taller guy, close the distance, head movement, slickness. You know, he showed you that a guy giving up over 7 inches of height or 7 inches of height can actually throw the uppercut and be successful with the uppercut. Like, it's crazy to watch all this subtle stuff that Canelo can do at that height, up at that weight class, that a lot of guys can't do in their natural weight class. And that's changing the angles of some of those punches. That's you know, looping some of the shots around the guard, how you work up and down, how you dictate to him to influence him to lower his hands, raise his hand. I mean, he was doing everything that he wanted to do. So it was really, you know, no doubt after 4 or 5 rounds, it was really no doubt. I really didn't think the knockout was really going to come. I thought, if anything, the corners would have stopped it. And it's really nothing. There's really no negative to take away. I mean, there's really no negative takeaway to put on Canelo. You know, like I said at the beginning of the stream, I really didn't mean to diminish. I really didn't mean to diminish Canelo as a fighter in any way. That would be the most ignorant thing in the world. I do think he's a guy that will have to make. It'll be a lot of a lot of mulling over a lot of strengths and weaknesses in any matchup that he goes forward with, because he is fighting above his weight class, in my opinion. I think he's great at great at 154 and very solid at 160. But I think once you start getting above that and you get guys, you get a couple guys here. But that's the thing, it's Canelo. He's a guy. He's not gonna beat himself. He's gonna be in in good shape, great shape. Even if he doesn't have the best gas tank, because he had some lulls in there, but he knew he had control of the fight. But even when he, it's gonna be hard to put Canelo in any adversity, in some situation that he hasn't seen. That's just not really gonna happen. So it's just gonna have to be somebody that checks more boxes than him, has great power, good quickness, similar or some equivalent level of ring generalship to really start having a chance to defeat the guy. But I don't have any negative takeaways from his performance. I thought the production of the show, I thought it was all fitting, and then I thought he had an excellent fight. So that's that. I believe that was all I had to mention. Oh, another thing with DAZN, it's just the facts. This is just the facts, in my opinion. This is just looking at value, in my opinion. They announced that March 13th, we'll get the trilogy between, not the trilogy, it's the rematch, right? The rematch between Juan Francisco Estrada, El Gallo, and Chocolatito, Roman Gonzalez. We get that March 13th, super flyweight unification bout, 115 pounds, with the WBA, which is Roman's or Gonzalez's belt. And then Estrada is the WBC. He might be the ring champion right now. They're going to get that on March 13th. So again, if you have DAZN, whether you're paying month to month, whether you got the 4 months of DAZN with the $60-something purchase last night for the pay-per-view, if you have that, or if you want to pay month to month, I'm like maybe a month and a half or a month into my annual pass for $100. You could have been sitting here wondering, what's going on with my subscription. And they've announced a couple of fights. They put the David Avanesian and Josh Pretty Boy Kelly fight out there. That probably doesn't move the needle for you, but I think that's at the end of January or early February. But this one right here, March 13th, I think that's indicative of the fact that DAZN is trying to do something. Like they have some kind of plans. Some scheduling is underway for 2021. So that's all I'm saying with that. Also, you saw Showtime has the bantamweight I mentioned earlier, Angelo Leo. They have that bantamweight title fight. He's the WBO bantamweight title fight. Him and cool boy Stephen Fulton out of Philadelphia. They've rescheduled that. I forget what date it is, but it's maybe January 20th, I want to say. They have also Showtime announced in that midweek, they have a Showbox card planned, another midweek Showbox card on Wednesday night. So look for that. It was some guys I'm not all that familiar with, honestly, as the fighters that night, but that's out there. So these announcements kind of give you an idea. Yeah, we're not out of the pandemic. There's no timeline or timing for fans to be coming back to fights. But like I said, this Showtime announcement, the Matchroom / DAZN announcement, putting fights on the schedule for next year, it gives you an idea, who's grinding to continue to provide fights. And like I said, depending how you're paying for this, you feel better about your subscription, or or the money that you have involved. And that's that. Looks like Haskins just had a turnover. Haskins, damn. Anyway, man, let me get on off of here. Appreciate all of the recent new subscribers. Appreciate the couple likes on the live stream. That's it for boxing. You got a week and a half or week and a half, because Garcia is right on the other side of the calendar on DAZN. So just on a personal note, like I said, I just put my $100 up, and I was very reluctant to go ahead. That was at the end of October. I think it was for that Estrada, Quadras, and Chocolatito and Israel Gonzalez. I think it was that weekend. It was something else. It was like 2 events that were going to be on DAZN that weekend. And I mulled it over, like, should I do 2 months? I mean, should I do a month, go month to month, and have the option of canceling? But at that time they had, and then you got the Parker, DAZN came out and announced the Parker, Joseph Parker and Junior 5 fight is in January. So you already, like I said, if you paid for the a new season, a new annual membership for DAZN, and you just gave them that $100 all at once, it's not too hateful, for the next month and a half or all the way to March, actually. They'll probably fill in some other dates. The Povetkin and Dillian White rematch is in play. So on and so forth. So, again, this is shit nobody cares about. People just want to complain more than they want to be informed. I just thought I'd throw it out there. Anyway, my name is Woodman. Bite down boxing. Don't let them count you out. Pay me no mind. Sports and entertainment. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.